My name's Dale Linegar, and I've been helping to organise the Asia-Pacific chapter of Games for Change. And for those of you who weren't at the session earlier this morning or last night, depending on where you are, this came about because I guess we're involved, and Kathleen's here, and Adrian and some other people. We're involved in serious games here in Australia, but a lot of the events that we're involved with and a lot of the things that we do, we feel like we're preaching to the converted, and we're preaching to people who already know about serious games and simulation and how they can be used. And we saw the Games for Change brand as a great way to reach a wider audience and start speaking to educators and start speaking to people who don't necessarily know what it's all about yet. So initially we started conversations with Games for Change about 5 years ago. We picked up those conversations last year, and we're very thankful for Susanna and DJ have really helped us sort of come up with a sustainable plan for growing Games for Change here in Melbourne. And we've got quite a bit of support behind us as well here. So I've got just a basic little slideshow. I think I'm only meant to speak for about 10 minutes, and then we can take any questions or have a quick chat. If there's anybody here from the Asia Pacific region, I guess this event for us is all about reaching out and meeting new people and getting to know what we don't know at the moment, because there's so much happening in this world, but nobody's connected at the moment. And that's another reason why we want to do Games for Change Asia Pacific, is so that people do have a platform to connect and promote what they're doing, and hopefully let more people know about it. Okay, so the plan for Games for Change Asia Pacific, and this is it's evolving quickly and it's changing every day, is to have it in Melbourne, Australia, as part of Melbourne International Games Week. So Melbourne International Games Week has traditionally had a couple of major events: Games Connect Asia Pacific and PAX for the region, which PAX is quite large. They also have an educational summit, which is hosted at ACME, which is sort of smallish at the moment. It gets sort of 80 to 100 people. But we're working with them as well. The initial idea was that we would be hosting it at ACME as well, which is, for those of you who don't know, sort of a multimedia museum here in Melbourne, for lack of a better phrase, that shows off sort of the history of film, television and games. So that would be an ideal place for us to host it in Melbourne. And the reason that we're looking to try to host it there as well is that it's a bit of a neutral venue in terms of getting universities involved and getting a lot of different people on board. And good morning, Vince. Yes, I have my own coffee here and I'm trying the extra strong this morning. Initially, we were also talking about, with Ivan Boo from Singapore, about the possibility of hosting it in Melbourne one year and Singapore the next year. At the minute, that's probably a little bit off the table, just because of the logistics of actually setting up an event, trying to build up a bit of a critical mass that keeps coming back every year, getting our own place in Melbourne International Games Week, getting our own place in ACME. There's all sorts of issues involved with trying to move every year. It'd almost be like starting fresh every year if we did that. But we are looking to host as many events around the region as we can. And I think definitely in Singapore, and we've already sort of had a few conversations with people from other regions as well, where we could possibly host little events, and especially if we're doing something that's virtual, which is looking increasingly likely, especially for next year, then perhaps we could do something that is a little bit more co-located, so that not everything is happening in Melbourne, so that we do have people from other parts of the region beaming in, hosting sessions, hosting mornings, hosting afternoons. And it's great that you know, and excuse me if I'm looking off to the side, I've got 10 million screens going on. It's great that you know Ivan as well, Vince. I think he is very well connected in Asia. And that's something that we're sort of hoping to tap into as well, is his connections. So as I mentioned, part of International Games Week, we have really good support from the state government here, because they are keen to make Melbourne International Games Week an International Games Week. So they love the idea of us bringing Games for Change here, because it is really it's an international movement. It's not like we're just starting something from scratch. As I mentioned, the Education in Games Summit is something that's already running at ACME, and we're working with Vincent Trundle to incorporate that into Games for Change and perhaps grow it a little bit. And at the moment, it's alongside Games Conference Asia-Pacific, which sort of gets ballpark, I think it's 800 to 1,000 people, and it's just been taken over by IGEA here in Australia, so I think it'll go from strength to strength. It'll be virtual this year as well, so that'll be interesting. And they're also starting up a new eSport conference this year, so that'll be interesting. So it's good that we're sort of, even as Games for Change is something that's global, and that we're sort of becoming part of something that's bigger than ourselves. Even within Melbourne, we're becoming part of something that's bigger than ourselves and that is promoted by the government and supported by the government. And hopefully, you know, by connecting with all these people and all these events, we can create something that's sort of greater than the sum of its parts. And good morning, Ivan. It must be, what is it, 7:30 where you are as well. So, and just to mention, Ivan and I started these conversations, I guess, late last year, and I was over in Singapore and was part of a great event that Ivan was holding, and was hoping to be back there this year, but circumstances have changed a little bit. But we're definitely hoping to work together. And good morning, Gillian, too. So some of the support we've got here in Australia from IGEA. So IGEA represents the games industry here in Australia. They've got quite a bit of power. They're representing the big publishers, and they are lobbying government for support. And at the moment, one of the great things they're doing is sort of, you know, pushing for tax breaks so that the gaming industry is recognised as similar to the film industry here in Australia. Over 20 Australian universities, and they're just the ones that have sort of given us actual letters of support. There's quite a few more, I'd say, that will jump on board once we're set up and running. Gillian, who's in the chat room, is from RMIT, who we do a lot of work with as well. And we have quite a few universities in the Melbourne CBD itself who are already on board, including, you know, University of Melbourne and RMIT. The Asia-Pacific Simulation Alliance, Alicia's been a great supporter of mine and ours throughout the years, and she does a lot of great work in the simulation space. Creative Victoria, which is the state government department, Austrade, which is the federal government department, and they sort of have a setup in Singapore, and they obviously have a lot of, like all, you know, government trade organisations, they have great interest in us pushing our agenda overseas. Simulation Australasia, which I am on the board of, and I have helped to run the Simulation Congress the last few years. Gillian's also on the board of Simulation Australasia. We run an annual conference, which is, it's not happening this year, but usually we run a conference that sort of gets between 400 to 600 people based around simulation, and it has 3 streams, which are defence, health and serious games. And when I sort of mentioned before that the serious games stream, we do end up largely, you know, preaching to the converted. We might have a few new people drop in, but usually we'll have sort of 40 or 50 hardcore people turn up who are already using serious games and simulation in their workspaces, and already, a lot of them already have the title of simulation manager or something along those lines. Serious Games Asia, which Mr. Ivan Boo is here representing. Serious Game, and has quite a few sort of board members from around the region as well. So I guess one of the things we're hoping to do is really involve everybody in the Asia-Pacific region, all the way from India on the left-hand side of the map across to New Zealand. Because I think there's a lot of fantastic work, you know, especially the stuff that the Indian guys are doing, and you can see there, they have a virtual marketplace stall here. It's fantastic. They're working with UNESCO. They're doing some really amazing work around sort of public policy and change. And just being at this conference, I've learned about so much that's happening in places like Hong Kong and Vietnam that I'd just never heard of before. So we don't know what we don't know, and we're just hoping to, yeah, get to know it. Serious Games ANZ is something that Kathleen was instrumental in setting up alongside myself and Adrian Webb, who's been online helping out as well. And that's primarily a mailing list, but has also been helping sort of run the Serious Games streams at the Simulation Congress and SimGhost later this year, it will be running a stream and sort of will be continuing to be involved in a lot of the local activities. And SimGhost is a great conference here, which is sort of, it's a simulation tech conference, but it also sort of encompasses serious games and quite a few other things. And Kieran, who's the president of SimGhost, has also been really supportive of what we've been doing. So we hope to continue to work with all of the people that have got listed there and more. And obviously this is very Australian centric at the moment, and we're hoping to change that. Okay. And I've just seen Vince has said, Vince is running a consultancy called Press Start Hong Kong, and it's after school education, Press Start Academy. So it'll be great to learn more about that and try to figure out what we can do together, and how we can work together sort of internationally and get some things going where we're all pulling in the same direction and all sort of aiming for the same thing. So some of the supporting activities, and these have sort of come from Games for Change New York, for lack of a better way of describing it. But these are some of the existing things that they do. So there's the Games for Change Student Challenge. Now, I've helped set up a thing called The Lab, which is a technology club for young people with autism here in Australia. There's over 25 of those around the country at the moment. So that's one of the ideal launching pads for us getting some sort of games challenge happening. And we're also looking at existing games challenges. So there's a STEM games challenge here in Australia, and trying to get, trying to work with people rather than to replicate what people are already doing. Obviously the Press Start Academy, other things like that. We'd love to have conversations with people about how can we all sort of get together and do something which is a little bit bigger than what we're doing at the moment. A publication, so this is one of the main drives, and what format this takes I'm not sure, but one of the issues that I've always had, especially with serious games, is in terms of academic conferences, serious games, the rate of change is so rapid that the traditional academic process of sort of submit an abstract, get accepted, publish, release, by the time it's out, usually people have sort of moved on to something bigger and better. So what we're really hoping to do, and the other thing is that a lot of these publications, they're not that accessible. It's sort of people diving really deep down their own rabbit holes, and it's only of interest to people that are really in that field. So what we're hoping to get out of a publication that we've been involved with is something that's a little bit more accessible, you know, something that high school teachers, primary school teachers and educators can pick up, health workers can pick up and read and learn from. And something that I've put in things about, you know, not just articles, but case studies, interviews, something that sort of connects things back to the real world as well. So not just an academic paper, but also perhaps an interview with the person who wrote the paper about why did you do this and where are you coming from and what are the ramifications in the real world for, you know, what you're looking into. So that's one of the aims, is sort of making the research around serious games a little bit more accessible. And the initial idea was that that would be basically a magazine, whether it's digital or paper, that would be available to all attendees and available online. And of course, there's just a web and social media presence. One of the things I loved about this conference was the virtual marketplace. And I can't see why we wouldn't just sort of have that available 365 days a year, really. And so that's something that we'll be trying to set up over the coming months. And back to the presence, it's just about sort of connecting everybody. And we already do the Serious Games ANZ monthly mail-outs, or roughly monthly mail-outs. And if we can just connect people and let people know what's happening, I think that's half the battle, because at the minute we don't, and it's really hard to sort of figure out what's happening in the region. So the other activities are Games for Change conference sessions and streams. So a lot of those associated events that I talked about, the Simulation Congress, SimGhost and things like that, some of the events that Ivan's running, we'd hope to play a hand in some of those things, whether we're hosting just sessions from a single session to an afternoon to a full stream throughout the conference. And hoping to tap into some of those pre-existing events as well. So we do a Friday called Sim Cafe. There are a lot of meetups around Australia that are sort of in the VR, AR space, serious game space. So we're hoping to, again, we want to partner with people. We don't want to try to reinvent the wheel because a lot of the stuff is already being done. So we want to sort of bring everybody together and provide a platform for everybody rather than trying to tell everybody what to do. The Games for Change Asia-Pacific Brain Jam is one of the brands sort of that Games for Change has come up with, the Brain Jam. Again, that could be held with existing organisations, and I know there's some government sort of hackathons and things like that here in Australia, and there's a few different things going on around the region as well. That again, if we can just tap into, bring what we have to the table and partner with those people, I think that's preferable to trying to set up something that's brand new. And talk and play events, which is another sort of Games for Change innovation and brand. Is something that I'd really love to do, just helping. And initially we were thinking that that would be held in developers' offices or co-working spaces. Now it looks like we might be better off doing that online and making it a virtual activity. And whether we're doing that quarterly or monthly or how that plays out is another thing. But more just giving people a chance to constantly showcase what they're doing and what they're up to rather than waiting once a year for an event. And also just being able to, because often with the conferences, you have to sort of, I always call them our Trojan horse. We have to write an academic paper or pretend to be presenting on another topic just to show off what we're doing. So this is just an opportunity to say, hey, here's what we're making and look how great it is, rather than going through that sort of convoluted process. And I'm happy because I think I've actually run over time, which surprised me because I wondered what I was going to say today. And good morning, Vincent. Good morning, Matthew. Does anybody have any questions? I think Marissa can actually put people on video chat if they like, or otherwise, please feel free to just type your questions into the chat box and I'm happy to answer to the best of my ability. Or if you've got any comments as well, feel free to chime in. Oh, and I have set up the domain hasn't resolved yet, but we have got the Games for Change APAC, just a MailChimp sign-up site. So everybody that's in the session today, and I think I know most of you anyway, or I've spoken to most of you, I'd love to just add you to that mailing list for now, just so we can stay connected, because it's very easy to lose contact. Okay, Marissa's just asked, hi, Michael. Yeah. So how can people, organisations, even Indian media from other countries support some of these ideas projects? Well, I'd say the first thing is probably just signing up and getting in contact, and we'll sort of, as we progress, we'll let you know what's happening. The other thing would be, if you do want to contact me at info@Games4Change APAC or GFC. Oh, geez, I've actually put that in wrong. Sorry, it's G4C APAC.org, the email. I should fix that. I'll just type that into the chat window. If you'd like to contact me and sort of say who you are, what you do, then it would be really good to chat further with you about how you might be involved. We're actually having our first, what we're calling a prospective board member meeting today for the organisation that will sort of hold it all together here in Melbourne. But that involves people from all over Australia as well as Ivan, and we definitely need representatives from all over the region to sort of help out with different aspects of what we're doing. And like I said, my idea is, especially that the board and the organisation here in Australia would be something that just supports what other people want to do. It shouldn't be directing what other people want to do, and it shouldn't be telling other people what they want to do. Our job will be as a central hub to sort of talk to other people, find out what other people are interested in, and yeah, facilitate those things and help them happen. So whatever people are up to, whatever people want to do, we can add them to our mailing list, add them to our website, connect you with other people who are doing the same thing, and really just be an organisation that sort of helps and assists rather than tells people what to do. So Vince has asked, how centralised is the Games for Change APAC operation, and how you're planning to work on this, and how can we join? That's, I guess, what we're just starting on. So if you can join that mailing list, we can keep you up to date. if you do want to email me with any sort of ideas that you've got, I would love to engage with you. And it's good that everybody's in the same region at least, so we won't have to, you know, get up at crazy hours to do it. We can just do it on the phone quite easily and have a chat and see where you're coming from, and you'll see where we're coming from, and see how we can collaborate. Liam has asked, mentioning that we're working with universities. Are you also connected with any unis from other Australian cities at this stage? Yes, absolutely. So my own history is sort of for the last 15 years, and I've just changed this year, but my business mainly did work for universities, so I've got quite a strong background in that. I do work at University of New South Wales. I'm studying at RMIT at the moment, and Gillian, who's in the chat here, is my supervisor. We have people from University of Melbourne on board. So we're open just to one of the ideas behind hosting at ACME, because I think the last time Games for Change was in Australia, it was hosted by RMIT, and that was a bit of an image. So one of the ideas behind doing it at ACME is to have that neutral playing ground that invites every university and gets everybody involved, rather than trying to partner with one university in Melbourne, because as some of you may know, it's quite competitive here in Melbourne, where you've got a few universities all within shouting distance of each other. So we want to work with everybody, really. We want to partner with everybody who's up for it in whatever way that we can. And thank you, Vincent, who's just said. So Vincent is the education manager, and correct me if I'm wrong, at ACME, who's been running those education sessions at ACME every year. But I guess one of the sort of the three big streams that we're looking at the moment, or there's kind of four streams that we're looking at for Games for Change: education, health, social change, and then there's the sort of scientific academic side of things as well, which is the publication that I was talking about. So what we're really looking for is people who have an interest in those fields. And even when you look at health, like, it's a huge field. There's Games for Medicine, there's Games as Medicine, Games for training health staff, Games for mental health, different programs that are just using games to help people. So there's a whole bunch of different things that are going on under each of those umbrellas, and we're hoping just to empower people and create some platforms where people can sort of progress their own agendas. So Vincent is Senior Producer of School Programs. And that's another thing we'd really like to do, is reach further into the schools, because a lot of the work that we're doing, you know, that's labelled as serious games at the moment, it's not accessible to particularly sort of secondary school teachers and some of the people who I think really should be using games for education. Are there any other questions at all? Okay. Nico's just asked, do we have a connection with IGEA? Yes, we've been chatting to, Raylene's been just a fantastic supporter of ours throughout the year. I have been chatting to her constantly on the phone. The last conversation was kind of a week ago, I'd say, both in terms of how we work with IGEA and then how we work with them now that they're running GCAP, which I'm just so happy about, as part of Melbourne International Games Week. So we're still figuring out exactly what that relationship will be. But I think again, it's just a situation where we're all pulling in the same direction. We love what IGEA does and how they're sort of helping to legitimise the Australian game industry, and we're very keen to work with them. They're good people. So them taking over GCAP, I think, was one of the best things that's happened lately, and I think it's going to be quite an exciting time for game development in Melbourne and in Australia, and hopefully in the region as well. And thank you, Vince. Yeah, it'd be great to get in contact. You know, I haven't met anybody who doesn't love IGEA so far. So, okay. Are there any other questions? And Nico, I'll definitely be in contact as well. I've heard and seen your name a million times, and the good thing about these conferences is that you finally get to sort of make the connection with people. So I look forward to chatting. Yeah, and Raylene's always been really good about pushing us to sort of, get more case studies, because I think part of their agenda is showing the good that games for change can do, and whatever you call them, games for purpose, serious games, games for change. There's a whole bunch of terms, but I love the term. I really do like the brand games for change, because it just broadens that umbrella and it brings a whole bunch of things underneath it that some of those other terms don't necessarily do. Okay. Great, thank you, Nico. Yeah. All right, and so hopefully we're starting, just as a final wrap up, because I can't believe I've filled the time for something that hasn't happened yet, but hopefully we'll be starting next year as part of Melbourne International Games Week. Depending on the climate, that might be, I think it will at least be a mixed event, because I think this virtual platform is fantastic, and especially if we're looking at reaching out to the whole region and letting everybody attend, sort of it reduces all the economic barriers there are to attendance. I'm quite happy to be here virtually, to be honest, because I was going to have to pay to get to New York and spend 20 hours on a plane. And so it will at least be a virtual festival next year, and hopefully it will be a little bit mixed though. And like I said, maybe it will be a co-located thing where we can have different things happening in different cities and everybody sort of beaming in and being part of the same festival. So, thanks to everybody who's come along to this session. We've got 27 people online, which is about 26 more than I thought. And thanks to Marissa for all your assistance in getting this happening. And thanks to the Games for Change people as well. This has been a wonderful event. So I look forward to the last day, and I think this wraps up the second day. And please feel free to email me, and I'm happy to chat on the phone as well. Okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you all. Chat soon.